Now, we made our stance very clear by tabling an early day motion, backed only last week by 55 cross-party colleagues in the House of Commons, urging our government to condemn the regime's attack on Mr. Raymond and to act on its recommendations, including creating an international accountability mechanism for the regime's crimes against humanity and genocide. As Mr. Raymond noted, international inaction during the 1980s allowed the regime to continue its crimes, including today's large-scale executions and violence against women. The regime's impunity emboldens it to threaten our society, even planning attacks on dissidents in the UK in collaboration with criminal gangs.
How effective that would be if they actually did prescribe it, I'm still not that, I don't think I'm that convinced that that in itself is a solution at all. It might be sending out the right message, but there need to be sanctions on Iran, and there need to be other, I think, things taking place. And, we have Iran Air, that you might like what I'm going to say, but why are we allowing Iran Air to fly into the UK? Why is Iran Air allowed to fly into other countries?
That the NCRI offers an Iranian solution and provides a democratic alternative grounded in women's leadership and in the support of the men who have so bravely walked beside them through this battle. There can be no doubt about it. This fear is so deep that it can't even tolerate Madam Ziabi's image in public or media unless it's distorted for propaganda or used to promote disinformation. They went as far as trying to silence her through a bombing plot orchestrated by one of their diplomats, targeting an NCRI gathering in support of a free and democratic Iran in Paris in June 2018.
Let's prescribe these terrorists. Let's look at the leadership in Iran and other places where they completely and utterly subjugate women and girls. And it's our duty, cross-party as we are, to constantly hold our leaders to account. They keep saying it every time. We will come into government, we will do this. Well, then do it. Let's bite the bullet and do it. Because everybody who's fighting, because they think we are standing here defending them, depend on us.
But if there's one place where you can be, without doubt, on the right side of history, it's on removing the mullahs from Iran. It has been mentioned several times, this appeasement policy. Over many years, this hope somehow that the regime will change its policy, it'll mellow in some way, or that the next leader will be the nice guy who will make a difference.
Today, women in Iran are leading an extraordinary movement for change. Those strong women in Iran are to be looked up to and encouraged. Despite systematic violence, they inspire hope through their protests, through their resistance units, and their calls for a democratic future. I worked with the NCRI for many years, and my first-hand experience is that they are all unwavering. It's time for a firmer stance. Our government must prescribe, as Oliver says, the IRGC as a terrorist organisation. No delay, let's get it done. And secondly, to recognise the NCRI as a legitimate voice of the Iranian people.
The mullah regime of Iran is truly scared of women. They are truly scared of girls.
And as someone who was imprisoned with my mother as a child, I saw that at first hand. And I also saw how defiant and courageous the women were in prison in the face of the most brutal regime that exists in this world at the moment. So, Iranian women, I think Madam Rajavi mentioned that they are a force of change. They truly are. And we've seen that over the past few years and past months, how they go out there on the streets, despite the fact that this brutal regime has people coming in, shooting them in the eye.
The regime is waging a war not just against women at home, but also, and also many of its other citizens, but also diverting attention by fomenting the ongoing conflict, particularly in the immediate region, but more widely than that, as you're only too well aware. and the regime is spreading death, destruction and misery. It's marginalising and demeans women, and we've seen more recent examples of that in the television news, killing and imprisoning activists and silencing dissent. And the Western leadership must realise that while they may be seeking de-escalation, that is not the agenda of the regime, which actively seeks conflict and also the surrender to their distorted view, particularly their misogynistic policy.
Women like Mariam Akbari Montfarah, Iran's longest serving and very brave female political prisoner, who has spent 15 years in prison only for seeking justice for her siblings who were executed during the 1980s and the 1988 massacre. What an inspiration that is to us all. Despite severe repression, friends, she remains a symbol of resilience, of hope and commitment to secure justice for the regime's victims and to hold it to account for these appalling atrocities. It's something I've said again and again at these meetings.
Mention of a 10-point plan is like a beacon which is shining in terms of hope and democracy that could be established in Iran at the present time if we were to work together. The 3-day conference had convened people, politicians and legislators from all around the world to support one clear message: support the Iranian people as they march toward a democratic republic. Most inspiring were the messages from thousands of Iranians and resistant units inside Iran to the conference, risking torture and death to show their commitment. Their bravery and determination are why they will ultimately succeed.
May I start by saying that I have the enormous, and I think we all have, the enormous admiration for the Iranian women. And it's very prophetic on this women's recognition meeting, which we are doing at the very moment, recognising the courage and endurance of Iranian women, and nobody can have our greater admiration than Mariam Ramjavi for all her work. So I join very much in admiration to the Iranian women.
So now, as Madame Rajavi very clearly said it in her speeches while she was invited by the European People's Party, the official conference at the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe on 2nd of October, as well as she was invited in the group meeting of the Alliance of Liberals and Democrats of the European people, and very recently last week for a large conference at the European Parliament. It is time now for decisiveness. Stop the policy of appeasement. Stop just having or tolerating impunity being enjoyed by these criminals and gangsters.